Hey guys, welcome to a really important video and probably the most exciting one out of the tutorial series, and that is franchise mode. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how to start a franchise from scratch. This is turning on All Pro Football 2K8 without any roster, any season, and this is going to take you from point A to point B all through the entire process from start to finish for everyone, whether you're new or not. So I'm going to go ahead and create 8 teams, because the first thing that you have to do when you're working with franchise mode is you need to create um, you need to create 8 teams. So if you don't create 8 teams, you won't be able to start a franchise, okay? So that's the first thing we're going to do here is walk through the creation of 8 teams, and it's not that long. It takes a few minutes to do, and but I want to show you guys. I want to capture everything from scratch, so you guys have it all in one video, and there's no no gaps, no question mark about how did you do this, or how did you get from point A to point B kind of thing, and what steps were skipped in between. So I want to make sure that everything is captured. Okay, so I'm just randomly creating 8 different teams. Okay, and you'll know when you hit 8 because the create team menu option it'll disappear. Okay, so I'm almost there. And just remember, this is an important step in the process, because if you don't do this, then you won't be able, like I mentioned before, you won't be able to start a season. You just won't be able to start it. So that's it. So now we have 8 teams. So if we look at our roster, you're going to see there's 8 different teams in here. Okay. So what you're going to want to do is pick any team out of here and start a brand new season. Okay. What you don't want to do if you're going to go into franchise mode or season mode, what you don't want to do is modify a regular roster. Okay, you want to take, and what we'll do now is while I'm talking, I'm going to go ahead and save this roster off on my USB drive. And by the way, I'm on an Xbox in this version, but PS3 is going to work exactly the same. And if you want to learn more about the PS3, there's a video tutorial on that in this series here. But what you're going to want to do is what I was trying to say before is you don't want to take a roster, save it, bring it into APFe, and make your changes, then go back into the All Pro Football 2K game and start a season with that modified file. You never want to use a modified, customized roster file as your season starting point. Okay, so this is very important. You want to take the roster that you just created, a roster that's never been loaded or modified by APFe, and you want to create a brand new season. Now, it doesn't matter which team you pick. If you're going to customize the entire roster, you can pick whatever team you want. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Wolves in this case. And now I have a season, okay? So before you do anything, very critical, you don't want to play any games. You don't want to make any changes here. You want to immediately go into the save option, and you want to save your file. Now, what I would typically do is save it to whatever name you think you want your franchise to be called. So I'm going to pick mine as the Bills, let's say. Okay? And from here, I'm going to save it to the USB. And then from there, we can go ahead and transfer the USB now to the PC. And I'm doing all this stuff in real time for you guys. And now what you can do is you can go back to the PC now. So now we're on the PC, and we can open up the season file. Okay. So you go to your USB drive content, whatever the folders are here, and you're going to take this file, and what I typically do is I'll move it to another location. Okay, so let's go ahead and put it on our desktop here, and then we can go ahead and close this file out. So now what you're going to want to do is open up the All Pro Football editor, and we're going to load that Bills file as our season file, right? FXG. Okay. First thing you're going to see, it's going to say the season file hasn't been rebuilt yet. Hit OK to rebuild. It also says don't worry because it's going to make a backup. Okay. If you didn't have 8 teams, if you had less than 8 teams, it will give you a message and tell you that you cannot rebuild the season file, and you'll have to get 8 teams in order to do that. Okay, so you hit OK here, and it's going to go ahead and rebuild and reconstruct the file, create all of your franchise files, and you're going to be all set. Okay. And once it's finished loading, and it takes 10 seconds or so to load, you're going to have your season file here. Okay, so if I wanted to take the Wolves and change them, but before I say that, let me say this. This is the point where you want to make your roster changes. Okay, you can open the file, close the file as many times as you want. It can take you a month to create your roster, whatever you want to do. You can import teams, export teams, however you want to do it. The key is you cannot play any games in your season until this is finished. Okay? So step 1, as I mentioned, create a brand new roster in the game, create a season with that roster, bring the roster into APFe. It rebuilds the roster for you, and at that point, which is where the point we are now, is where you can make all of your changes to your roster. Okay, so in this case, just for fun, I'm going to change the team to the Buffalo Bills, because you guys know that's my team. Okay, and then I'm going to make a change to, let's just pick the halfback. Okay, let's change the halfback to be LaShawn McCoy Shady. Okay, and from here, let's go to a few other places here where you're going to want to go. Now, there's plenty of tutorials on these different season mode screens, but you're going to want to just make your changes, like I said, to every team, to all the teams you want to make changes to all the players you want to change. You want to go into these areas here. If you want to change the way every team's messaging changes, you can do that. If you want to change what teams you control, you can do that. A quick note while we're here is that the way that the franchise works, there's only 24 teams in the franchise. Okay, a roster file holds 32 teams, 24 computer teams, CPU teams, and 8 created teams, right? Well, when you create a season, what happens is one of the CPU teams are that slot is taken, and in this case, it's the Red Dogs because you see the lock icon here. Okay, so every team that's locked are teams that are not in the season. So what happens is you might see a different team taken, but there's going to be one CPU team taken to fit your user control team. Okay, so that's the way that it works. But if you wanted to, you can actually go into the team and you can actually change the team control. So some people have asked me, oh, can I control every team? Well, you pretty much can, unless they're playing each other, right? Because what you can do is you can control in season mode, you can control one team at a time. So what happens is if you want to play with every single team, you can do that. What you have to do is you have to basically clear all the control teams and then select which team you want. It only lets you pick one at a time. So if I want to be the Cougars, I can be the Cougars. Okay, but I'm going to go back and choose the Bills because that's my team. So let me restate this again. It's important. If you want to control more than one team, what you have to do is before you play, let's say you want to play with the Legends and the Bills, okay? You would control the Bills if they play first. You play that game, and then when you're done playing that game, you save your file, bring it back to APFe, change the control team that you, the other control, to the other control team, which is the Legends, right? Save it in APFe, load it back up in All Pro Football, and then you're going to see that you're controlling the Legends. So you can play the Legends game. And you can do that as many times as you want for as many teams as you want throughout the season. Okay? But we'll get to that part next. This step is more on creating the roster. And like I said, this is where you want to do everything. You want to create your free agents here. You want to create your rookies if you have any. You want to create your retired, player. Whatever you want to create, you create your full roster that you want to mess with for the season. Really, all you really need to do is create your roster. You don't have to worry about the free agents. You don't have to worry about retired or the rookies, because that's really going to take more place more in the second and subsequent seasons, right? So that's the players and the rosters. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to change your schedule if you want to. You might like the schedule you have. If you want to create a different schedule that matches a real life league like the NFL, you can do that. You can double click on here and you can see your schedule. I went through this in another tutorial video. You can watch that. But if I want to randomly create the schedule, which I didn't do before, I'm going to just hit start here. And it's going to randomly create the schedule. Now this is dangerous for me to start during the video because it could take up to 5 minutes or so to run. And hopefully we get lucky here and we don't have that issue. But what this does is it's going to go through every single team and it's going to iterate and loop and just try to find a way to randomize a schedule and make it to where every team has the appropriate amount of home games and away games, and also the divisions games and the conference games. So in this case, it finished rather quickly. Sometimes it could take a longer time, so just be aware of that. But now, if I look at my schedule, you're going to see that my first game now changed to the Cougars. And if we go back to the actual schedule and I click on my team, which is the Bills, you're going to see my schedule has been generated. And I'm going to have 8 away games and 8 home games. And it's just a random generation. They could be night games, like this. In this case, they can be early games or late games, and that's the way that it works. So you want to get your schedule set up. You want everything to be set up before you play your first game. As I mentioned, as long as you don't play your first game, you can go back and forth and you can open this roster file as many times as you want until you have the initial set of teams you need to have the initial set of teams all constructed before you start playing, right? Your standings, your player stats, none of that will really matter at this point because the roster is brand new and the season is just getting started. Okay, but you want to change everything like you would normally do. Your coaches, your teams, your players, everything. Okay, once you're done, so we're going to go to step 2. Once you're done creating your roster, you have all your teams set, all your players set, you feel good with your roster. The next step is to save your roster and load it back into All Pro Football 2K8. So we're going to do that now. So we're going to go ahead and hit save. And every time I save, a backup gets created. And I'll drag it over here so you can see. There are actually a couple backups that were created because we had one created during the rebuild process when we first loaded the season, and it asked us to rebuild. And then we have a second one created now that's the backup of the rebuilt file. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this season file and we're going to replace it with the original that we had. And I'll just drag it over so you can see. I'm going to replace it with the original one I had. And you're back in your USB now with this new file. One thing that you want to make sure you're doing is if you're using an Xbox or a PS3, watch those videos on how to use an Xbox 360 with APFe or how to use a PlayStation 3 with APFe. Because if you don't watch those and you don't use it the correct way and rehash and re-sign the correct way, the files won't work when they get back to the console. Okay, so we're going to go ahead now. We're going to switch this over to the Xbox 360. Okay, and in your case, it might be a PS3. Doesn't really matter. So now what we're going to do is we're going to load that same season file. Okay. And if you did everything right, that should load. If it didn't load for some weird reason, then obviously you have something else going on. Now, one thing I didn't do is I didn't change the uniform, but we can actually see, and hopefully it doesn't freeze on me. That's one thing that you might need to be careful of. If you look at your players, you may end up having an issue, but chances are you won't. So we went ahead and changed LaShawn McCoy, changed him to be LaShawn McCoy. I'm not sure why he has the nickname different there, but don't worry about that. That might just be a bug that I'll have to fix. And I'm just going to open it real quick on my end and make sure that it came out correctly here. All right, sorry about that. There was an error that was happening with the nicknames and a couple of names that I've never seen, I haven't seen in a long time. But what happens whenever that happens, whenever that error happens, man, it takes forever to fix. It's a major, major, major issue, and it keeps rearing its ugly head. And the more I change it, the more it improves. And I think this time I got it working, I hope, perfectly now. And so we'll keep going with the tutorial. I wasn't going to restart it. I just wanted to fix it and keep going. So now if you look at Shady McCoy, he's on here correctly and the team is loaded on here correctly. The one thing that I did do is I actually changed the uniform now, and I'll show you that when we get back. So now it's the actual Buffalo Bills uniform that I created, and the schedule is obviously different. So everything works. I did some quick testing and everything. You can go into any menu you want, and nothing should freeze on you. Because we're modding, there's always a possibility that things will freeze, but from my testing, I didn't see anything freeze. So now that we're back and we've finished editing our roster, everything looks good. We're ready to start the season. So from here, you can basically play any game that you want. This is important. So you can basically play any game that you want in your season from week 1 to week 16. You just can't start the playoffs yet until we get to that point in the tutorial. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sim 8 weeks just for fun. And normally you guys would be playing your games, obviously. And as I mentioned earlier, if you want to control multiple teams, you can do that. Okay, and if you want, we can actually test that now just so you can see what that looks like when I'm done with this. But what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and sim to week 8 and then, or week 9, I guess. And what we'll do is we'll take a look at the stats, and I'll go ahead and try to just take a snapshot of these so we can see exactly what these look like. So if I go ahead and sort the total yards, let's do passing yards. So if we do passing yards, I'm going to take a screenshot of this, and then I'm going to also take a screenshot of the league leaders. That way you guys can see that things are matching up. And this is also going to be a live test for me, so hopefully this works. Okay, let me just do a quick save of the league leaders and then the team stats. All right, save those on my PC, and then let's go back. So now what we're going to do is go back to schedule. So what you can do is, like I said, you can play any of these games Any order, you can play one, you can play the whole week, whatever you want. All you got to do to get it back into the editor is save the file onto your USB. I'm going to go ahead and call it Bills 9 because we're in week 9. And save it to the USB. Okay, now once that's saved, we're going to go ahead and take the USB out of the Xbox, put it into the PC, and we are going to put that into the editor. Okay, so let's go ahead and transition over to the PC now. All right, so now we're at the PC, and the file we want is inside of our season folder. I'm going to go ahead and drag that out to my desktop. And now let's go ahead and open the season file. Okay, so desktop Bills 6. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. Desktop Bills 9. Okay, so everything should load up fine if you've done this tutorial correctly and you followed along like you should. So from here, let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. So we have the schedule that shows all of the games. If I want to look at our actual team here, it's going to show our record is 4-4. Okay, and if we go quickly back to the, actually, I really didn't even need to do screenshots. I'm just going to do it from here. If we go back to the game, you'll see we're 4-4. Okay, so that's being recorded correctly. If we look at the team standings all around, and from here we're 4-4. The Federals are 7-1. You can look at that there. And going back to the editor, let's take a look at what that looks like. So we are in the Atlantic Central Division, and if I look at the total wins, we're 4-4, and they're 7-1. Let's go back to this. That's a match, right? So everything's matching up. Okay. If I go to the team stats and look at the top rated players, you're going to see Otto Graham is at 149.6, and he is leading the league in passing. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like in the game. And same thing, 149.6, 139.6, 138. So everything's matching up. Okay. And if we look at the team stats, I know I wanted to look at that one as well. Let's take a look at that. See if that matches up. And I wanted to see the total passing. And Ironmen, Cobras, Americans. And if we go to the game, we have Ironmen, Cobras, and Americans. 2145 and 2145. So you can actually see that everything is calculating correctly, which is what we want, right? We want this thing to work, right? So basically, you can come in here and you can look at anything you want. If you want to go to your team, and I'm the Bills. If I want to go to the Bills and I want to look at LaShawn McCoy, I can look at his stats straight from here, right? I want to see how he's performing in the on the team. I can do that. I can see that he has 756 rushing yards, 150 attempts. If I go back to the game and look at him there, the same exact thing, 756, 150 rushing attempts. So you can see that things are showing up correctly. And if you look down here, you're going to see his overall career stats. This is the first year, so his stats are right here. Okay. And if we want to go back to the player stats and we want to just look at the Bills team, we can do that. And we can look to see right here. I'm going to maximize it. These are one of the screens that there are a lot of columns, and so you want to make sure that you maximize it. But if I want to look at who has the most rushing yards and I do it by the Bills, then LaShawn McCoy is number 1. Okay. And then we have Hodge is number 2 and McAfee is number 3. So we go back to the game. So yeah, so everything's working. So I know this is very boring and going back and forth, but I want to show you guys that this stuff works and and it seems to be, working fine. So what you're going to want to do for franchise mode is you're going to want to follow the directions, obviously. And what you guys can do, if this video is too long and you're already bored and you want to move on, that's fine. You can go right to our franchise mode section. It shows you how to start a new franchise, how to play with the file during the season, the playoffs, and then season end. Okay? So it tells you everything here in one shot. So now if we go back to the game, because we really don't even need to save here. I didn't make any changes. If you want to make changes, you can. So from here, let's go ahead and go back to the schedule. Oh yeah, that's what we were going to do. We were going to actually change our team. I want to show you guys that. So if we go to another team, and let's say we want to be the Cyclones. We're going to reset the user teams. And now we're the Cyclones. Let's go ahead and save this file. Save it. And now we're the Cyclones, right? Let's close the file out. Let's open up our season USB. Let's overwrite the Bills 9 with this one. And now we're going to take it back to the Xbox so that we can see how that looks. Okay? So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to quit your season. Obviously, you're not in there anymore. I'm only in it because I'm showing you guys the video. And from here, you're going to want to load the same file that you had. Whoops, it's not the right one. Let's go back. So now it's going to show me controlling the Cyclones. You see that? So now if I want to play a game with the Cyclones, I can play the game. I can actually go to the game and play the actual game, and it works. Okay. If we go back to the schedule, and from here, what I'd like to do is let's just go ahead and simulate the whole season. So what's going to happen now is you want to play all the way through week 16, obviously. And the way that it works is that the franchise mode captures both season stats and playoff stats. So what you're going to want to do is capture the playoff stats, and here's how you have to do it. This is a very important tip here to follow. Once you get your season finished, no matter where you are in the season, okay, you're going to want to start the playoffs. And whether you made the playoffs or not, like see here, we didn't make the playoffs. So it's going to ask me, do you want to exit the season? And we're going to say no. You don't want to exit the season, because if you exit the season, you lose your file, right? You lose your place. Unless you just saved at week 16 and you just happen to save that week, that's fine. The point here is that you want to, once you look through this and you're happy with the awards, because the awards are not in the editor at the moment, but they might be down the road if we get the right support for this. What you're going to want to do now is you're going to want to go to the playoff picture. Okay, so once you're in the playoffs, once you've made it to this point here, just like in the beginning of the season, don't play any of the playoff games. Very important. Don't play any of the playoff games. And what you're going to want to do from here is you're going to want to save your file to your USB. Okay. This time we're going to do Bills. I'm just going to call it Bills P for playoffs. Okay. And from here, we're going to save it. And once that's saved, we're going to move over to back to the PC now. And let's go ahead and move the file over to the desktop again. Close that out, and then let's go ahead and load that playoff file and see what we got here. So what's going to happen is the All-Pro Football Editor, if you did it correctly, it's going to tell you that the playoffs have started. And it's going to ask you if you want to save the season stats now and continue loading. If you hit no, it closes the file and you can't open it again. I mean, you can't open it right then and there. You have to save your stats, okay? So there's no reason to not save them. It's just I'm just telling you guys so you know what to do. Okay, you're going to hit yes to save the stats. It's going to save your stats, and now you can actually play the game without even taking you don't even need to take the file over there anymore. It just needs to capture the stats before you play the games, or else you're going to be in trouble. It's not going to capture them correctly. Okay. So now what you want to do, since we're not in the playoffs, you're obviously not going to play any playoff games unless you're in the playoffs, right? So at this point, whether you're in the playoffs or you're not, or you get eliminated, you want to finish the season out. Okay. What I want to show you real quick before we totally finish the season is the Minutemen won, right? I'm gonna not exit the season, and what I'm gonna do is, what you can do is you can save, just like with the season when you're in weeks 1 to 16. You can also save the playoffs in actually I'll just save over it. You can also save the playoffs at any point. So you can save them during the divisional games or the conference championship or the actual championship game. Okay? And if you bring it back over to the PC, which I'll do that right now. So now we're back at the PC. I'm going to close the file we had open before. I'm going to bring over the file that we just basically just saved over, Bills P. And now we're going to open it. And when you open it, you're going to see something different. So here we go. So this pop-up comes up when the season is over, when every single game has been played. So when the championship's over and the playoffs are finished, once you save and you have all the games saved like we just did, you're going to get a prompt, whether you're in season 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, whatever. It's going to say, okay, I've detected all the seasons are basically done. Do you want to go to the next season? Okay, if you hit yes, then what will happen here is all of the stats and the entire roster will be reset for the new season. You're still going to have your season 1 stats, but you're not going to have your standings anymore. You're not going to have your schedule the way you had it. It's going to all basically get refreshed. And this is the part that, if you think about it like this, when you go to a brand new season, you have to think of it like when you started the first season, like we just did, a few minutes ago. You're going to basically create your schedule again. You're going to change players around if you want to. You can send players to the retired list. You can send players to the free agency. You can build a rookie class if you want to and just pretend like you're building, a new team. But whatever it might be, or you can leave the team exactly the way that they were and just change the schedule around. Okay, so I'm going to hit no for now because what I want to do is I want to show you guys a screen that I really haven't shown before populated. And this is the playoffs. Okay, so this is going to match what you see in the game. When you go back to the game and you look at the playoff picture, it's going to match it identically. Okay, it's going to have all the scores there and the teams and the entire playoff picture. But once you go to the new season, you're going to lose this picture because the picture is going to be for the next season, right? And but that's a screen that I wanted to show you guys because I don't think I've shown you that before. And that's that, right? So then you can also look everywhere else. You can look at your season standings and you can see who had the most wins, who had the best home record, who had the net points. There's a number of different record or ratings that you can view here. You can also look at your player stats and see how they performed over the year. You see who your leading players were. You can look at just the playoffs and you can see that the team that had the highest rating for passing were the Federals. And looking back at it, the Federals didn't even make it out of the first round. Okay, the team that won the whole thing were the Minutemen. And if you look at the Minutemen, it looked like they had a pretty decent quarterback rating here. And it's cool because you can see the playoff stats now, and you can also see the season stats. Okay, And you can see them, they're two separate stats. So during the season, Herbert had 115 pass rating, but in the playoffs he had a rating of 146. Okay, so it's really powerful because you can actually separate the stats by the type, or you can just combine them together. But every player that made the playoffs is going to have a I'm pretty sure it's just the team. Let me just double check. Yeah, it's just the teams that made the playoffs. So the ones that made the playoffs are going to have um, a row for the playoffs. When the teams that didn't make the playoffs, they're not going to have anything there, right? So if I go back to just a season and I pick a team, let me see which team didn't make the playoffs. So the Americans didn't make the playoffs. So if I pick a team that didn't make the playoffs and I look at their stats, you see he doesn't have any playoff stats yet. But if he gets playoff stats in the future, that will be added in here. Okay. So you're not going to want to move. The point here is that you're not going to want to move to the next season until you're happy with looking at all your stats and looking at all of the standings and the team information in here and the playoff picture and all that stuff. And then once you're done, I mean, you can even look to see like the different rankings for each team and see who had the most, total offense and total defense and all that cool stuff. It's all in here. You can see who had the highest winning streak. The Minutemen won the last 5 games, and that includes the playoffs. So the point here is that once you're finished with everything and you like what you see, then you can just close the file. You can reopen it. And I know this is a long video. I think I'm going to do another video that's a very quick and dirty, like back, boom, boom, boom. This is how you work through a franchise mode. But in this one, it's more detailed. So if you're still with me, then I hope you're learning some things here. And like I said, you can also go to the help menu if you want to look at it offline and not sit here through a long video. So this is warning you, saying that once you go to season 2, you can't go back to the current season. So I'm going to hit yes. So now what it's going to do is it's going to start processing, and it might take, a few seconds or whatever, but 20 seconds or so, but it's going to start processing and collecting all the stats and everything. And now you're basically in season 2. Okay, so if I go to player stats, once this is finished, it's still loading. Once it's finished, if I go to player stats, I can look and now I can see year 1 and year 2. If I do playoffs, all we really have is 1 year for the playoffs because we've only had 1 year, right? But if I look at season and I look at this guy here, I can see that he has year 1 and year 2. So now we're in year 2. So what you're going to want to do here is the same thing that you basically did before in the first season. You're going to want to go through, and let's say I want to send this guy over to the retired. Say, you know what, you're retiring, buddy, Mark Kelly. So what I can do is I can go back to where we just were with Mark Kelly, and now I can edit him and make him whatever I want to make him. You can also send players. Let's say this guy's off the team and you want to copy him over to free agency. You can do that. And then I'll copy him over. He's over there now. I chose not to go there now. And now I can edit this player and make him whatever I want to make him. Or I can go to the free agency and I can take this. Well, that's retired. If I go to free agency and I take this player and I copy him, and I haven't spent too much time testing the franchise copying and pasting of this stuff. So if there's some issues, then they'll be fixed later on. But you can copy the guy over. So now he's Sam Bailey. Okay, so that's the way you're going to move players around. Okay, and the stats look like they carried over with him, or at least the team did. I don't know if he had any stats to begin with. Let me see. What is he? A defensive end? And his rating is, he's a generic, so I don't know how much he actually played, but let's take a look. Let's go. And I'm doing this live, so if I have any issues, I'm going to have to fix them later on. Let's see what kind of stats he had. I don't see anything there. Let's go back to the Americans. And I just forgot his name. So Sam Bailey. Let's see, Bailey. So I'm not seeing any stats for him for the first year. So let me pick another player that I know is going to have stats. Let's pick Irvin Fryer. We know he's going to have stats for the first year, right? So he has 791 reception yards. I'm doing this on the fly, so pardon me if it doesn't work, but like I said, I'll fix it down the road, but it hopefully will. Let's see. Let's send him over to free agency, and let's copy him. I mean, we can look right here and just see already if some of his stats carried over. So you can see they did carry over to free agency. Okay. So now if I copy him, and let's say we want to put him on the Ironmen, and I want to replace their top receiver, okay? Now Urban Fryer's over there, and let's just see if everything's stuck. So everything's stuck with him, right? So that's what you want. So what you want to do is you want to go through and you want to basically move around players, add rookies, retire players, whatever you want to do to simulate a league. You can go into the schedule. I don't know why this is broken, but something just happened there, so I'll have to look at that, but not sure what happened there. No, let me close this out. Something weird just happened there. I'm gonna have to look at that. But this is a live tutorial, guys, so anything can happen. And by the way, you're gonna notice that a new folder was created. So whenever you create a let me see. Whenever you go to the next season, sorry. Whenever you go to the next season, you're going to see that a folder is going to be created, and it's going to say 2 for the next season number, and then it's going to say, whatever the name of your file is, the original file that you had. So the original file we had was Bills, right? So you're going to basically have that file over again here inside the folder. Now that folder gets created. Let me look to see, so I can tell you guys the exact place where it gets created. It should get created right where you it should get created where you load the file from. So let me just double check. Trying to figure out where it went. Okay, here it is. So it's going to go into a season folder, which I already have one on my desktop, so it went into the same folder that I had in here. And then it's going to have these numbers on it, and you're going to see 2, and you're going to see your file. Okay, so wherever you opened your previous season file from, you're going to have a folder that's called season. It's going to have, like I said, those weird characters, and then it's going to have the year and the file, just so you know where your file is, okay? If we go to the schedule now, I have to look at that error. I'm not sure why it error. Something weird happened. Let's just make sure that our players are still where they were. So I don't think the players took, so because I had that error. So let me go ahead and move Urban Fryer over again to free agency. Yes. Let's copy him. Let's go to the Ironmen. And then let's paste the exact copy over. Let's go to the schedule now. And what you can do, like I was saying earlier before all the error happened, What you can do now is you can basically create your schedule, and you can do it randomly using this tool again, or you can do it manually. And once you're done with everything, you take the file, you save it, okay? Save it, and then you put the file on your USB. So this is the file here. I'm going to put it on my USB here. Just going to replace the one that was there. And then we're going to go back to the Xbox now, or PS3 if you're using PS3. And then from here, we're going to quit the season that we were on. Okay. And let's see if this is freezing on me. Sometimes this happens. I might need to turn off my Xbox. Sometimes this happens because it you don't have the same files on there and it doesn't like it. Hold on. All right, so this is a live demo. This is what happens when you do a live demo. But it's also important to know that that's why when you're messing with these files, because you're modding, because you're doing things that the game wasn't meant to do, you're going to have weird things that happen, okay? But I've put a lot of time into the editor. I've worked really hard on it, and there are things that, a lot of functionality in here, and things that have been drastically improved from the old one. The old one has things that are buggy in it, okay? And this new one, it's still going to have bugs because you can't always get all the bugs, but it's a lot better than what it was in the previous version. So now we're going to open up the build season, and it's going to load. And just to make sure I have the right games here. Okay, so we're playing the last game, and same thing. So this is the right file. Okay. If I go to let's go to the Ironman. See if I can see the Ironman. Game plan, depth chart. No, I can't see them. Let's go to, let me see. No. Actually, I could probably go to the actual game matchup screen. Yeah. So I can probably see Urban Friar. You see that? So I'm playing against Urban Friar, and Urban Friar's on the Ironman, and Ironman have Dan Marino, right? Let me just double check. Yeah, they have Dan Marino, and then they have Urban Friar. So that's the team. And that's the team that I'm playing against. Okay, so this is their defense, this is their offense. So this is them. So it took. So now when you play this, you're going to treat it the same way you treated it the first year. You can take this file, and you can go back and forth between the editor and back, and until you're at the playoffs. And when you're at the playoffs, you do it all over again. So this is the same process that we just went through. You can play around from games week 1 to week 16. Like I just mentioned, you can go back and forth into the editor. Once you get to the playoffs, you need to save the file, bring it to the editor, save the stats for the playoffs in the editor. Basically, it's saving the season stats at that point. And then you come back to the game, you finish out the season, whether you make the playoffs or not, and then you come back to the editor, and that's where you save. And like I said, at any point, no matter where you are, no matter what stage you're in, those critical steps need to happen. But anytime you're playing the game and you want to save it and bring it into the editor and do some stat tracking or do some research on another team, whatever you want to do, you can do that in the All Pro Football editor at any time. This video is more to walk you through the steps that are necessary and that are required in order to get this thing to work. So that's pretty much it. I'm probably going to do another video that's a very quick and dirty, just quick boom, 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 maybe a 10-minute video. And this one's more for the detailed guys that want to learn step by step in real time. So that's it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry for all the mishaps. This was a live video, and I hope that you guys enjoy this franchise mode. I can't wait to start mine, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.